The Bulls versus the Bears. Get in the game. www.tackletrading.com.
Hello everybody, this is Coach D with TackleTrading.com here to give you a quick market update and recap. Let's start out with the S&P index. Let's take a look at the E-mini S&P futures, and here we are, looking at that daily time frame. I got a lot of chart here. Let's see if we can get that to play nice with us. Market poked out to the new highs 2 weeks ago, and now we're seeing it kind of consolidate in here, still staying above that support resistance zone. And the shadows down here indicate that it's testing and trying. Some of the signs I see in here are some consolidation. We have a bearish engulfing candlestick followed by an inside kind of bullish harami, and now we've got a hammer-like long lower shadows that tell me that there is some buying pressure in here. And if you kind of ballpark up a trend zone, I mean that's ish, we might see it find some support in here, but the market's very, very tentative as of late. One of the things I do notice here is that looking at the volume, the up day has had much smaller volume. There's a pretty good day on that bullish harami, big bullish harami. Following day lost the volume right in there. That little candlestick up here, this little candlestick up here had the lowest volume of the bunch. And then the biggest volume was on the bearish down day. And then the next 2 days we kind of see some typical slightly above average volume. So those are some good signs. We're just gonna have to watch and wait and see which way it goes. There certainly could be some movement out there. Let's take a look at the other major market indices. Let's look at the NASDAQ. Very similar story out here. Same song, second verse, trading above resistance. Little bit of a drift sideways, typical volume above resistance. Let's take a look at the Dow, E-mini S&P futures. And again, all doing very similar type movement. Pressed to the highs, poked its head up above there, came down into the known support resistance neighborhood and in the trend zone. So very, very similar story. If you kind of look at the ballpark trend neighborhood, it's hanging out in there and hasn't really given us a signal of confirmation as of yet. Seasonally may or may not happen. Let's take a quick look at the Russell 2000. And the Russell 2000 is in here, and it's the only one really trading down below support resistance. And it came up into that little kiss goodbye zone, dropped, and now it's kind of consolidating sideways. There's signs of a double bottom here, and then there's signs of a double top. So we're really going to have to watch and see which way this one goes. If it breaks above 1260, we're bullish. If it breaks down below this 1230-ish zone, we're bearish, kind of watching that. Let's take a quick look at the VIX with the market kind of hanging out where it's at. Whoops, don't need a dollar sign on that. VIX, old habits die hard. Taking a look here, we can see that the VIX is back down to 14.24. Not a lot of fear, but it's definitely up off of those lows. Let's take a quick look at Gino's favorite indicators. Let's look at the $ AR 3-month low minus the 3-month high. Let's do that. Let's go 3-month high minus AR All right, let's see what we get there. Boom. And we're seeing that shift to the negative a little bit, which it can do from time to time, but that's when we've seen the bigger market corrections, is when we see that shift. That's looking at all the stocks traded on the Archipelago clearing network, the ECN, which is going to give you a lot of the New York NASDAQ, major exchange stocks and ETFs, et cetera, all those things. It's taking the stocks that are making new highs minus the stocks that are making new lows, and we're seeing that shift to the negative. That could be a sign for us. Keep an eye on that. So that being said, with where I see the S&P right now, kind of looking at it from the the general broad market perspective, we're still bullish, tentatively bullish, but the market's just really struggling out there, and that triangle could end up being a rising wedge. We're seeing it kind of squeeze in there. General loss of momentum. I've talked repeatedly about seasonality, where June tends to be the down month, but we're just early into June, and there's no hard fast rules there. Let's take a quick look at the Trade Center real quick here, and keep an eye on what's coming up on our economic calendar this week. So as we log into the Trade Center, look at our economic calendar, we'll get a pretty good feel for what's coming up here in the near future. Last week we didn't have a lot of economic data and information. This week we should have on Friday we typically would have the employment situation, the non-farms payroll report, that first Friday of the month. Big stuff coming up here. We got international trade information coming out. We have some nothing major as far as we've got some manufacturing indices, but they're all lighter on that regard. We got the weekly jobless claims, not a big deal there, not as important as the Friday unemployment report. So Friday we got the unemployment report, the non-farm payroll report, so keep an eye on those. Those will be the big catalyst for us right now, and as we keep an eye on that. Now, if we are going to take a quick look at let's look at the market carpet here on the heat map and kind of get a feel for overall. Today we should see some general black neutral type movement and a little bit of red. So you can see some of the bigger players, a little bit to the red side. And I've got a couple of bullish ideas and bearish ideas out there. As far as bullish trading ideas, I'm kind of interested in charts of Apple and Facebook look interesting. So let's take a look at Apple real quick here. Apple's been pressuring up to those new highs, and it's traded down into a known support resistance zone. It's got its little doji in there, just kind of doing a little bit of a bullish pennant type scenario, and as it's pressuring those highs. Let's take a look at Facebook. I found interesting just because of where it's sitting on its chart. It's kind of in this general primary trend zone, and again, I can draw a line to justify just about any trend, but what I'm really seeing in here is the higher low. The volume was building up on the last 2 days, and it's in a known support resistance neighborhood. Higher low, it's cleared out some of that overhead resistance last time it popped, cleared out some of that overhead resistance, and so it's kind of done this little drift into a buy zone, and we're starting to see it pop up. Now, that long shadow on the top there, that could be, signs of some selling pressure, but the slightly increasing volume, you'll notice that the 2 up days, the downward drift started to wane, and then it's starting to pick up a little bit. So that could be an interesting little short-term pop if the market does maintain some bullishness and breaks out. I found that one to be relatively interesting. I think oil is also poised here. It did a nice little run for us, came down into the zone. Boom, it's coming up into its resistance zone, and if it can clear that, we should be off to the races a little bit. That should be a good thing for oil. Let's take a look at crude light /CL, and very, very similar scenario here where we're seeing kind of that approach into resistance, and if that breaks up, we would watch the airline index, XAL. Oops, no dollar sign. Again, old habits die hard. Airline index putting in what I think should become a kiss goodbye. It did a big breakdown, so drop, boom, kind of rallying in here. Watch for a kiss goodbye in that neighborhood, and you could go pick off some of your favorites like Delta Airlines. Very, very similar situation where it kind of popped up into here. It's already starting to drop a little bit. You can go look at, of course, things like you've got all the other major, LUV, etc., etc. So we've got a big setup for kiss goodbye coming in here. Looks just like the index. So keep an eye on those. That'll be a trading opportunity for us. This is Coach D with TackleTrading.com. We will see you guys on the flip side.
Get off the sidelines and take control of your financial future at www.tackletrading.com. Get in the game.